The presenting sponsor of Upmarket is Aereo, the best place to grow and manage your real estate media business online at aereo.com. That's ARYEO.com. Coming to you from the makeshift Upmarket studio in the beautiful Ojai Valley of Southern California, this is Upmarket, a podcast about the business of real estate photography and media. My name is Reed Fish. I'm the CEO and the co-founder of Upmarket Media. And it's one of those days we have to slog through without Mark, without Chelsea. So it's just going to be an hour of me talking. Congratulations. Just kidding. We have two guests today. I am excited. In fact, these two guests are some that when Mark and I first started the podcast, these are two of the people that were on our list to have on the podcast. And it's taken us almost 2 years to get them, although one of them was on for an action item a couple of years ago at PMRE. But we have Andrew Coleman and Katie Coleman, the owners of In1View Media in Reno, Nevada. And the reason we've wanted them on the podcast is they kind of got their company in a little less it's not an unconventional way, but it's not the way that I think most people have gotten their companies in this industry. And so we wanted to talk about that path because it is kind of an interesting path for people. And Andrew, Katie, you actually bought an existing and thriving real estate media business. So can you tell me kind of how that happened and why that happened?
Well, first of all, thanks for having us on, Reed.
Yeah.
It's been a little too long. I'm not that upset about it, but
well, that's all right. Be upset all you want. I can't control your emotions. So
anyway, happy to be here. So my route into photography is a very unconventional one. I had never had any experience with a camera before I got hired for this job, really. So in 2014, I just graduated college. I was hell-bent on being a CrossFit instructor, and I wanted to get into personal training. And then I realized I didn't like adult babysitting, so I got out. And then I was just bartending.
I'm like, I
was just bartending to.
I was going to say you do adult babysitting now because you work with realtors. So
exactly, and realtors are just as bad as training clients. Yeah. So I was bartending, and some regulars of mine had a real estate photography business, and they kept bringing up how if I knew anybody to let them know. Didn't have to have any experience, just wanted to go out and shoot houses. And so I got curious and started asking some more questions. I was like, hey, how much money do you think I can make? And they're like, oh yeah, you'll probably make like 65 or 70,000 your first year. Yeah. At that time, I was making like $35 or $40,000. So as a young kid, just graduated college looking for a career, it was kind of a no-brainer. Sure. All I had to do was invest in the camera equipment. So I invested like $10K, got a used Nikon, and started with this company. Well, first year I made $80,000. Second year I made $95,000. And then it just kept going up and up and up and up and up. I was 1099. I didn't love it, if I'm being completely honest with you. Yeah, there's flexibilities that come with it. However, I was young and naive, and I wasn't really told how to set up a business, really. Even though I was working for another company, I was still 1099, had filed 1099 taxes. And I didn't love it. I felt like I was treated like an employee where I was told where to go, when to go. I had no control over compensation. That was already preset for me. And I felt like I was doing the majority of the business. So naturally, I thought, what's next? There's got to be something more than this. At the time, I had a non-compete contract for 2 years. It was coming up on expiration, and rather than continuing to fight with them and be unhappy, I knew that they were probably towards the end of their career. And so one day, someone pitched the idea to me. It was actually an attorney. He's like, rather than fight them, why don't you offer to buy the company? He's like, as long as it's a going concern, it'll continue to profit. And I was really scared about that because it seemed like a bigger investment than I was willing to make. Although when I found out the actual price tag of what we paid, it was way higher than what I thought we were getting ourselves into. so I brought it up to Katie, and initially she was like, no, not a chance. We're not doing this.
Right. Well, this was also March or April 2020. So we were in the thick of COVID. And I'm like, I was a school counselor. I had a reliable job, but all the schools just closed down. He was this photographer. We didn't know if there was going to be a business through COVID. Like,
sure,
you remember,
of course.
We didn't know what it was going to look like in those early days.
I thought it was going to be busy for 2 months and we're done,
Yeah. And then he comes to me with this idea of like, let's buy the business. I'm like, I don't know if there's going to be a business in 6 months to be had.
Right.
So it was a lot scary.
Well, okay. So that wasn't on their radar to buy it. So it's not like, because I've seen real estate media businesses advertised actually. And, people, I want to get out. I want to sell. This was something kind of you guys thought of and then, or Andrew specifically, I guess, and approached.
Yeah. And so we just kind of pitched it out there because we were going to have a meeting about my future with the company. Right. And I kind of threw him off guard. And I said, because he kind of got the idea I was trying to renegotiate my contract and whatnot. And at that time, we were getting a pretty good split as a 1099. But like I said, it just wasn't enough. Yeah. I needed something more. And so I pitched it to him. And initially, he was like, no. And then he thought about it a little bit more. And he's like,
yeah.
Let's talk about this. Let's see where it can go. And his wife was the one that was probably a little bit more reserved on the fact, it'd kind of been their baby. They started the company here in Reno in 2005. And at that time was the only real estate media company around here. So we started to explore the options a little bit more. And honestly, this is when Katie kind of took over the whole thing. She wrote the business plan. She did all the negotiating. She found financing, and if it wasn't for her, we probably wouldn't have ended up actually going through with it because there was a lot more business planning on the back end that I was not prepared for.
So Katie, can you tell me a little bit about that? Because I think it's very easy to be like, oh yeah, we're just going to buy business, and then it's like, what does that actually look like? And what did you have to go through? Yeah, you have to write a business plan. I mean, I'm assuming, I guess, in order to get financing, and you can talk a little bit about how you got the financing, that you have to have those things.
So one of Andrew's friends was, I don't know exactly what his job was, but he was in finance in some capacity. And he was like, the university here in town has an SBA consulting division, essentially. They're just housed at the university. And so he was like, you need to get an SBA loan. And they have this like free program that will help you. So he got us in contact with somebody there. And if it wasn't for him, nothing would have been successful because he like I said, I was a school counselor. I don't have an MBA. I don't have any business experience. So I have no idea. So we met with him. He was like, you need to get projections in place, which he helped us with. He helped us with writing a business plan because of Andrew's extensive experience in the business. We had a lot of the information needed to write a business plan and put it in place where how we wanted it to look versus how it had been.
Right.
So without Andrew's involvement in the business, we would not have qualified for an SBA loan.
Because he was already existing in the business. So if you guys were just outside and coming in, they wouldn't have given it to you.
Correct. And there was, kind of fast forwarding a little bit, we were denied one business loan with one bank because they didn't like that I had not been in the business.
Oh, interesting.
So they wanted two people, two of the stakeholders in the business. And there were some other things that they didn't like about us and our, proposal or whatever. And the guy that we were working with at the university, he was like, I don't understand why they denied you. So I don't this is a good deal. But we need to just kind of pivot and find somebody else for financing. So it was a lot of, spreadsheet. And that's kind of where I realized I like to nerd out in numbers and spreadsheets and things like that with the data. So that was kind of fun to say like, oh, if we do this, this is the impact that it'll, make on the business and things like that. So we had financials, we had a business plan, we had to go through the negotiations with actual owners, which was, interesting and fun in and of itself. The whole process, by the time we pitched them the idea and actually closed on the business was a year. So it was an extensive, it was extensive. It was, never ending. Like we need this, just little things, that they always needed and would go dark for a few weeks and then come back and say, this is all the things we need. Right. So it was a long process.
Well, and even in those early stages of when you're pitching it, I mean, then, and because you're kind of coming at it from an employer standpoint, then all of a sudden they had to open their books to you, right? Because you can't even know how much to offer. So that, I mean, God, that seems like it would be like an awkward situation. And then,
it was when we found out where some of the money was going and being paid for and how they were doing certain things for tax purposes, and then they wanted to put that into the value of the business. Mm-hmm. It was something that took me a long time to wrap my head around, and some of the things I still don't agree with. But ultimately, at the end of the day, we still got a good deal because we bought it under the appraised value that the bank had.
Right. So how did you come to a price?
So they pitched us on two different prices. They pitched us on a seller financing price, assuming that we would not get a bank loan. Sure. And then they had a cash value price, which they considered a bank loan cash value. And basically they took, I believe it was 2.5 times cash flow. And so that's kind of the valuation that they came up with. When we did our valuation with the university, we came in at a much more conservative number.
Yes. Shocking.
So the number that they pitched us was $478,000.
Okay.
Was the cash
was the cash value. If it was going to be seller financing, they wanted $550 plus 6.5% interest plus 50% down.
Okay, 50%.
Who's got 200? Yeah. Oh, who's got over $200,000?
Because if you can't if you can't qualify for the financing for the 470, you're not going to get financing for the Anyway, okay. And then what was it? Do you remember the number that you came up with?
Our initial offer was $400,000.
Okay, so not that far off.
I think Correct. The university had it based off of their, taking their books and doing an evaluation. I think they had it closer to like 370 or 380. So we were like, okay, we'll kind of meet, obviously closer to our end, but a little bit not totally offend them with $100,000 off, but a little bit higher. And that's kind of where we went. And
then, so at 2.5 times, so they were bringing in, what were they bringing in then? So I'm trying to do the math. They were doing like 125 or 140 is what they were grossing.
That's what yeah.
Interesting. And so,
but then you have to keep in mind there was salaries on top of that and some other earnings as well. I don't really remember all the exact numbers that they gave us. Katie would be more.
I don't remember
that. Yeah, but I mean, and for our purposes, that ballpark is good. So you have that's a lot of money to finance. Right. I mean, that's like buying a house, right? In most parts of the country. We had to get help. We had to get help with a down payment. We had and is it the same put kind of our house as collateral. Is it kind of the same kind of thing where you have to put 20% down? Like if we're thinking of it as a house, I mean, is it similar or how is it different?
Similar. We had to put 10% down though.
Okay. Yeah.
And then we had to have two pieces of collateral. We had to have our house as collateral, and then I had to take a key man life insurance policy out on myself as well.
Sure. Well, and then did you, and can you tell us where you actually, what the final number was, where you settled?
We met them at that 478 because we had some friends that were helping us with the negotiation side and kind of evaluation. And we knew that it needed to be a peaceful transition.
Right.
And they had to be invested in the transition as well in order for this to be successful. Because at the end of the day, we're buying a client book, right? So we met them at their number rather than trying to haggle back and forth over $20,000 when we knew we were going to make that money back in the first year.
Right. Well, what then talk a little bit about that because you are just buying a client book, right? And I think if you're coming from the outside, that's the scariest thing about buying a business like that, right? Is like, okay, the owners, the sole operator is going to retire off into the sunset, now have their client book. Well, there's no guarantee those clients are going to stay. And, in this situation, you have that same vulnerability, and that's why the bank, I'm sure, wanted to know that you had been in the business is because it's a relationship business and you have those relationships already, right? But what was that? How did the previous owners do anything to facilitate that transition and kind of work with you after, or did they just kind of leave you with it and you have to figure it out?
So basically, they announced the sale like a week before closing on an email blast. I had already kind of gathered, just based off of non-specific conversations, that there was a bunch of people who had been encouraging me to go out and start my own business. I felt rather good about the client list coming with me because of those relationships. So basically, I was the ideal person to buy their company, because someone that's not with the company that's coming in to buy it is probably not going to get those same relationships that I already had.
Well, and the other important aspect of this is we were keeping Brian, our other photographer, and they made sure he was probably the second, outside of us, one of the first people that we told of what we were going to do, and made sure that we had his buy-in and he wanted to stick around, because that was the other key part of that. And so we got his kind of like, not approval, but like, yeah, I'm in on this. And also they made sure they wanted to take care of him as well. So they made sure that we were going to keep him on. So that was another key part of a smooth transition, was keeping 2 of the 3 or 4 photographers on board too.
Mm-hmm. And then, did you, but so you, and tell me a little bit more about, I guess, how seriously did you consider not doing it and just starting your own company? And I mean, I know there was, and I don't know, obviously I don't know, well, I'm not a lawyer, I don't know law at all, but in California, basically non-competes are invalid. Like you can't even do anything with them. And I don't know, is that kind of true in Nevada, or is it, you seem kind of scared of it, but it does seem like those non-competes that's hard to enforce those.
They're very hard to enforce, and they're fairly easy to get out of. There still would have been some legal money that had to be spent on it, and there was no guarantee that I was going to get all that business. Plus, it's not really a good look to go out and compete against your former employer in the same town. Like Reno's a small town. People know people. And I didn't want that kind of hanging over my head. I felt like this was a cleaner way to do it. And I felt more comfortable about the cash flow once I looked at the numbers and realized that, no, we can do this. We can support a debt service.
Right. Well, and so how much then is that debt service that you have to pay?
$5,000 a month.
That's a lot right off the top.
So it's $5,000 for 10 years. Mm-hmm. So we'll be in 7 years into it. So yeah, it is a lot. And it is like buying a house, because we really can't, until that principal or that balance goes down, we can't qualify for a new house.
Oh, right. There you go.
Because
sure.
Yeah, so instead of buying a second house, we've got a business, which ultimately in the long term will help us. But it is one of those things. But there's never been any issue with making that payment in, the years that we've had it. And so ultimately it was a good decision. When we were still in the early phases of figuring it out, fighting the non-compete became the scarier option, and buying the business came the very clear choice moving forward. Mm-hmm. So it kind of flip-flopped. Oh,
that's interesting. Well, did you, in those negotiations, did that come up of like, was there were you kind of holding that in your back pocket as like a threat to the owners? Like, and was it a said threat, or was it just like, oh, they know that,
I'm sure they had an idea. However, I never directly said it or brought it up as a negotiation tactic. However, it was in my back pocket if I needed to pull it out. The big thing was I needed this to be as seamless as possible, and I needed them on board. So I had to do it in a way that kept them invested.
Right. And so you have all that. And so the deal goes through, and then how was the transition?
The transition was pretty easy. All of our systems were already in place. It was just a matter of changing some passwords and some logins to all of our vendors and everything. Mm-hmm. And then we were good to go from there. We had to set up our own kind of scheduling system with Katie, because she came up with like her little proprietary system or whatever that she put together. That was probably the most difficult transition piece. And then the other one was to get the agents to call Katie instead of the previous owner book stuff.
Sure.
Because we're not fully online booking. Like we do offer online booking, but a lot of our clients like the personal touch of being able to reach out to Katie. I mean, she's the face of the company.
And when you bought the company, then Katie came to work for the company at that moment, or did she transition before that?
So I had, in order to get trained, I had taken some days off of my school counseling job to go sit with the previous owner and like how she handles things, what she does and things like that. And then I took that and I'm like, I'm not doing it like this. I'm going to do it my own way. Which, and just kind of getting some inside scoop on different agents and things like that. So there was some training in that respect. And then once we closed, I left the school district during spring break and jumped into the company in April. Right. We closed April 5th, and that was my first day working for the business. So that I feel like that transition was fairly smooth. The hardest thing was, like Andrew said, getting agents to call me instead of her. And so for about a year, I mean, we had put it into the contract that they would be available and forward any requests that they would receive for a year. And they were good about that. There were a few hiccups along the way because they decided to go traveling as I don't blame them. So there were a few little hiccups along the way, but nothing super impactful or like just dead silent or anything like that. So the transition overall was smooth.
And then did you just immediately start changing shit up? I mean, because I imagine after working at the company for a couple of years, you're like, oh man, if only, I'm sure our employees are like, oh man, if only they did it this way, man, this thing would really take off, right?
No, not right away. We left everything as is for about the first 6 months. Cause we need to dip our toes in the water to like, how do you run a business? I don't know anything about running a business. So we kind of had to learn that on the fly. So we didn't want to change too much. The biggest thing that I wanted to do right away was renegotiate our price with the hosting company that we were using, which we did that right away. That was huge. That saved us a lot of money. And then I knew at some point we wanted to look into outsourcing editing, just because.
You were still doing it in house, and was the model that the photographers did their own editing, or it went to a central editor?
Correct. Correct. Yeah. And so I was tired of working 12 and 14-hour days.
Why?
So we made that switch in July, I believe, of our first year, and then never looked back. And then that's when we went to PMRE our first year and met you. Right. And that is how we got hooked up with Aereo. Shout out Aereo.
There you go. Oh, shout out to Aereo. Well, it's funny you say that, Andrew, because I think we should actually have a little a talk about Aereo. And so why don't we'll do that after this music comes up. We're going to do a social media sidebar with these guys. We're going to talk much more in the second half. And man, we're going to have triple action items today. So stick around. Aereo. I think we got a couple other Aereo users on here. So why don't we go ahead and let's have a little group discussion about Aereo. Oh my God, so much fun. Okay. What's your guys, each of you, what's your favorite thing about Aereo?
The price.
The price was good. I love the online scheduling.
There you go.
That part of it.
We're getting much more into, and I wish Chelsea was here to talk about it because I feel like we're starting to use the online scheduling of Aereo. Although I don't know, I don't get scheduled for shit. So what do I know? I just look at the money rolling in while I'm drinking. That's how it goes for me. So okay, so we don't have that much time, but so you would say using Aereo has made your business help your business grow and run more smoothly, right?
Yes, absolutely. So before when we first took over, we didn't want to change anything, and I pieced together a bunch of different platforms to create my online scheduler because this has to be easier than the way that it was being done before. So I did that, and then they came back from PMRE and they're like, check out Aereo, and I'm like, I have been checking out Aereo, and you didn't want to do anything. anything. And I'm like, I know all about it. Let's do it. So as soon as they got in, I was able to cut costs because it's their all-in-one solution is there instead of piecing together a bunch of things.
That's where I met Andrew for the first time at the Aereo party on the first night. And then I think Mark and I were the ones that convinced him. So you're welcome, Katie. So Aereo, if you want to get in on the fun, it's aereo.com, ARYEO.com. Use the code Upmarket, and any new user is going to get 15 free bonus listings. So not only is it a great price, it's going to be even better because you're going to get free bonus listings. Who doesn't want to do that? Hey, do you know a great way to drive additional revenue for your real estate media business? Oh, you know what it is. It's floor plans, baby. Come on. If you're adding floor plans to your menu of services, I mean, that just makes you even more of a one-stop shop for your realtors. And look, Second Floor app is one of the best ways that you can create floor plans quickly, efficiently, easily, all those wonderful ways to do it. And it is the quickest way to deliver a floor plan to your clients. You can walk around 5 minutes, scan a house, the floor plan is ready instantly. And it has the GLA square footage. Oh my goodness. All that amazing stuff. secondfloorapp.com/upmarket. And you're going to get 1 month free. And in that month, you can do so many floor plans. And again, you can sell those floor plans. You can throw them in on shoots. Either way, it's going to drive a bunch of new revenue for you. secondfloorapp.com/upmarket. All right, social media sidebar. Ooh, man, Upmarket Pod across all social media that I sometimes occasionally post to. And so we're also upmarket.media is our flagship social media where you can see all the amazing photos and videos and stuff that we do. It's just so amazing. And then I assume, Andrew and Katie, you have social media? In1View Media has social media. I actually know it because I've seen it. I follow you. But go ahead and give that out.
So our main account, obviously, for the business is In1View Media with the IN, the number one, the View Media. If you would like to follow me, it's Katie Coleman. Or I don't even know, actually. Okay, it's Katie Coleman.
Yeah.
I think.
All right. Yeah. Perfect. All right. I'll link to that in the show notes.
Yeah. Andrew?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and my handle is @Coleman_NV.
All right,
NV is in Nevada.
Yeah, Nevada. Yeah, not Nevada for all those people out there.
Not Nevada.
It's not Nevada. It is Nevada, as anyone from the West Coast should actually know. Okay, actually, so I do have some very specific social media questions for you both because I know we've been following you all for a while, and I've noticed that you were doing, and not so much anymore, but a lot of like kind of on camera social media stuff, and I think that was a service that you were providing for realtors, right? Doing short form content, video content for realtors, and that's something that we've always talked about doing. And so how's that experience been, and what's going on with it right now?
We still do it. We have one monthly retainer. We do all of his content and all of his posting. And then we have a handful of other clients that we do their short form content in batches or one video for market updates, things like that. It's challenging to find the ideal client that wants to do the monthly retainer, that will that really understands the defined roles, like this is what we're in charge of, this is what you are in charge of, and kind of find that. So we have that. We don't advertise it a lot because it is a challenge. There's other companies in town that can do short form content creation like we do, but it's just kind of, it's something that we do. It actually helped us tremendously last year during our very slow season. So I'm very grateful for it. But it's a piece of our business. We're not transitioning to all of it.
Yeah. Well, at this year's PMRE, when I saw Andrew, I asked him about it, and I think he rolled his eyes and was like, "Oh my God!" So that's so I did want to hear the downside a little bit of it, because I think it's something we always talk about, and in fact we have one client now we are actually talking about doing a monthly retainer. And it's something we've always kind of skirted around with people, but there's one guy who actually I think wants to do it, and I have a lot of trepidation about it, because I feel like it's going to be a lot of my time spent this would be, that I'm going to have to come up with a bunch of the ideas, and I don't, that would involve me working. I don't want to work. We all know that.
Yeah, that's exactly kind of the pain point I think that Andrew was referring to.
Yeah, so the pain point more is the managing of the social media. Like if I'm posting on someone's behalf,
you guys were doing that too.
Than you. And I'm still doing it for one client, and it can be a little bit more trouble than it's worth, because it honestly takes a lot longer than you'd think.
No, I think it would take a long time.
And do it. Yeah, especially with YouTube. YouTube's a completely different animal. However, I feel like I've gotten into the flow of it, especially on his YouTube hosting, where we're now, I think in 9 months, we've given him 1,200 followers.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And his page is really starting to take off. He's finally starting to get inquiries. And so it's been a good piece of our business. As far as doing like our own social media content, when you used to see like the talking head videos that we did on our own account, I don't think that we got the traction from the realtors that we thought we would, as far as like the educational standpoint. But what it did was it started to generate buzz, and they're like, "Oh my God, I love those videos. Can you do them for me?"
Right.
And so that's really how we started getting rolling with this whole thing. Is we tried doing it for ourselves. I don't think that we were doing it quite the right way, because we don't have an online offering to sell as like for example, like a course, like come watch our course, or come like buy our presets or something. For that, I think it would work if you started to educate other photographers on a product that you could start to sell to them.
Sure.
But as far as selling to an agent, I don't think it's helped us all that much for gaining business strictly for listing photos and presentations.
Right. But then so it did bring a lot of business of people who wanted to produce those type of videos. But then has that been, because now you say you have one client you do it for. So did you have a lot more and it just kind of went away, and why? And are you trying to cultivate more of it?
We had 2 clients that were on retainer, and they were $3,500 retainers. So that's $7,000 a month that we were getting.
Oh yeah, that's fine.
And one
pays for your loan servicing.
That's not a small chunk of change. Exactly. And so we still have one of them going. The second one I kind of fired because he just couldn't keep up with everything. He was really awkward on camera, and it just wasn't a good fit. I don't think their vision aligned with our vision as far as content creation. As of right now, we still have a few other clients that we do it for. We do record a podcast for someone in-house. We give them a YouTube video and then cut it up into short segments for them, which is what they really want. Honestly, there's a huge demand for it in our area. So we do keep getting people coming to us, but it's kind of pinpointing and handpicking the people that we actually want to work with, because if they're not like-minded, it's not going to work out, because I can't commit my full day to the content creation because I still have to go out and do houses. So I think we've kind of found a sweet spot where I can still go out and shoot houses with the rest of our team and do this content creation on the side as well. And honestly, it's opened a huge amount of revenue for us that we would have never had.
Boom. Yeah, but it sounds like a pain in the ass. So anyway, we're going to be back after this music, and we're going to talk a lot more with Andrew and Katie and end it with the action items. Okay, Andrew, Katie, I want to talk a little bit about, again, more of that transition and like kind of what it was, I think so many people in our industry, they they start the businesses themselves, right? And so it's just them, and then they're going to add employees or contractors, as they grow. But for you, it was almost this immediate transition from employee to employer, right? And we kind of touched on it in the earlier part of the episode. But like, what were some other? I mean, how was that transition for you? I mean, not only were you figuring out how the business ran, but you had to figure out how to be a boss, right? Because you had a few other people working with you, right? And so, what are some changes you had to make, or what are some things that you had to go through in that process?
So the number one change that we made, and this was something that I talked to Brian about, knowing that he was going to be like our number one guy, was making everybody employees instead of 1099. And the reason that I did that was because the way the business had been ran, and I feel like the way most of these businesses are ran, it's more of an employee-employer relationship than a 1099 relationship. Now, right. I guess that varies between business to business, but specifically the way that ours had been run and the way that we kind of set up our business model, we felt like is best run as a employee-employer relationship. So a couple things that we started doing at that standpoint was, we took on everybody's health insurance. We pay 100% of everybody's health insurance. We offer a 401k match. So those are, and we reimburse all the gas miles as well. That was something those are things that we obviously weren't getting as 1099. We were paying our own medical insurance. We had to pay our own taxes. So 25% of every check had to get set aside just for taxes. And we did pretty good with that, but I didn't feel like it was the right relationship to have. And I wanted to build a culture around our company. So that's when we decided to make everybody employees.
Yeah. We've talked about it many times on this podcast about how in California, it's really set up where you really need to make them employees, and, doing them as 1099 it just doesn't kind of work. But but you're coming at it with the experience of having just been a 1099, kind of employee who's not actually an employee. And so was that something from your perspective as someone doing the work, that's the transition you would have liked to have made if you were in that position still? Yeah.
Yeah. And honestly, I would have felt there was an investment in me versus just using me to help you grow your business and make $1.
Right.
Because I was doing the majority of the work and I wasn't being rewarded or recognized for it in any way, shape, or form.
Okay. Wow. That's okay. All right. Well, that's bad. That's what we try to, we'd like to recognize our employees. And then when you did that, then did you also provide them with the gear, right? Because as 1099, you got to bring in the gear. And I feel like as an employee, you got to provide the gear. And so, but you already had photographers working for you. So did you just buy all new gear, or did you just say, hey, just keep using your gear?
With Brian, he started using his own camera. Since then, we've updated it. And so now any new equipment that Brian needs or any of our other employees, we provide the gear because that's the way that it should be done.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And if they have their own gear, we cover it under our business insurance. So if something happens to it, the business can help, fix, rectify, replace, whatever.
Right. But do you do a rental fee for those employees that are bringing their own gear to it?
No, we do not.
Okay. Yeah. That gets hard. We don't do. I mean, we basically though we provide all the gear. So occasionally someone will, I have this light, I'll bring it, or something like that if it's a different kind of shoot. But so now you're like 3 years in, right? Yeah. And so do you think it's been worth it?
Totally. I feel like, I haven't gotten my life back the way that I kind of was hoping that I would. It's opened some more avenues for us as a family. It's been it's allowed us to be able to increase our household income as well. It got Katie out of the school district, which she absolutely hated. I'm starting to shoot the way that I want and deliver the images that I want and the way that makes me happy. And we're taking on some business that we didn't have the opportunities to do before. So it's opened a lot of doors, and I would definitely say that it was worth it.
All right. And you've been able to kind of overall grow revenue, and, you've been able to grow, I'm assuming, or hoping.
Yeah. Katie can talk about those numbers more than I can.
Yeah, every month. I mean, I don't have them in front of me, but every year we've grown historically. I mean, we have data, I think, back as far as 2019 from the previous owners, because that's as far back as they gave us. But every year over year, we've gone up at least, our average price per property has gone up significantly from like 204, I think, when we took over. And then the next year it was like 279. And then just with us owning it, it's gone up at least 5% every year. Even last year, with it being really slow, we had 200 less properties, but we made like $40,000 more in revenue.
It was 600 less properties.
Oh, 600 less.
600 less, and you made $40,000 more overall.
50,000. Yeah.
And a large part of that had to do with all the content that we were creating. I mean, honestly, while it is a big pain in the butt, that brought in an extra $100,000 into our business last year.
Yeah. I mean, that's sizable. That's substantial.
Yeah.
So I think, to your question of was it worth it, I think it was, because we had a lot of ideas, and that was some of the feedback that we had gotten from agents, or Andrew and Brian had gotten from agents, is once we took over, they're like, wow, you're really just updating this company and taking it from just something that was just kind of standstill, operational, good quality, consistent, but now we're really like modernizing it. And I think with our mindset, we're always looking for better or worse. We're always looking for the next best thing and what that can look like. So it didn't free up our time. We're not sitting in the chair drinking wine and getting our hair done every day like you are. But
hey, sorry.
But we definitely have more control over projects that we want, where we want it to go, and things like that. And I think that just brings a internal sense that you can't get like monetary or anything like that. So it's improved our quality of life.
Sure. Well, and how big is your team?
So we have 3 photographers, including myself. So it's me, Brian, and then Rich. We had 4 photographers that we'd run, because during the summer, with 4 photographers, we'll do 16 or 20 houses a day.
Sure.
So we're running and gunning, and that was something I kind of wanted to get away from. So this year we're raising our prices and hoping to do a little bit less business, but being able to generate the same amount of income. Right.
Well, so let's talk about that. How much are you raising prices?
Basically the biggest change is that our minimum is going up $50.
Okay.
Instead of going out and doing a house for $199, it's now going to cost, the minimum for us to go anywhere is going to be $249. So that's the biggest change. And then after we started talking with you guys a little bit and kind of seeing how you did your pricing structure, last year we introduced packages, like pre-built packages, and that's been huge for us. And so those will go up a little bit, but really it was kind of how do we get the bottom feeders to come up without affecting the people who pay the most?
Well, and you and I had talked a couple months ago, and just kind of chatting about stuff, and I was inspired because you were talking about how you had raised your Twilight prices quite a bit in an effort to deter people from doing Twilights, but then you're like, well, crap, they just did even more of them. And so we were, because we're really looking at, bumping our price, and we still have, I'm hoping that we're going to have it done by beginning of February. But our Twilight price is $250 right now. And I want to move it to $350 or $335. And then Mark is more, I think, in the $300 range. But, I'm kind of like, let's just fucking do it, man. Because everyone hates doing them. So.
Because what's the worst that's going to happen? They don't do them.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you didn't do any Twilight, how would that impact your revenue is kind of, like the mindset. But if they're built into your packages, though, you're not going to get away from them entirely.
No.
Right?
No. And you just can't. And I think it also is not, it's good content for us to have too. I mean, people like Twilights and what we're hoping that is that we can do a certain percentage less, but then those people that aren't spending the money will then just buy the virtual Twilights, which I know Andrew notoriously hates virtual Twilights. I hate them too, but I like getting paid for them. So because that's a very easy thing. Can you talk about your Twilight journey a little bit?
Yeah. So originally our Twilight price was at $169, and obviously at that price point, it's completely not worth it because of, you're going out there late at night. But driving, shooting, processing is probably an extra 2 to 3 hours of work.
Yeah.
And at $169, it's just not worth it. So we raised it from $169 to $229 and did the exact same amount of Twilights as we did the year before.
Right.
So this year we're raising them up to $269, which, isn't massive leap. It's significant. We're definitely going to be the highest in town by at least $70. But when you get into those packages, that value comes down to about $250 to $229, depending upon which package you get yourself into. Right.
Yeah. And then, but there does reach a certain point though, where you're just like, I don't care how much I'm getting. I don't want to do this. Because it's like, and especially with you, with you guys, you have a couple young kids, little kids, and it's just like, man, it's like, not to be cliche about it, but it's just not time you get back. And especially, and you guys as being, married and, Katie's still working in the business, but so she's working the business all day and then it's dinner time and Andrew's out shooting Twilights. And then it's just a recipe for like stress at home and just like, I don't know, man, it's just a drag.
Yeah, and our photographers have families, obviously, of their own as well. So we want to keep that in mind, too. We have an upsell compensation that we implemented last year, and that's been really helpful. So if a photographer sells, it wasn't already scheduled, and they think the house warrants it, and they can tuck the agent into it, the photographer receives a cut of that. So it incentivizes them to do it, but it's totally on their dime, or you know what I mean? Like they have authority over it. Now if we have Twilight scheduled, they just get assigned them, but it helps them out, and then it helps the business out as well.
Right. No, and I think what we're going to roll out when we raise the prices too is we're going to give like some form of a Twilight bonus to our employees, whether they've upsold it or not. And so that it is a different topic. And, because I think we can just talk a little more generally about business but you guys do that. So you rolled that out this year or last year to the upsell component, and how have you seen results from that?
Oh yeah, massive. Like one of our guys, he was really, really into it and, bought in right away. He's making extra $700-800 a month in his upsell compensation.
Wow. So
that's significant.
No, for sure. Can you tell me how you structure it?
So yeah, it's basically, it's not a hard set percentage of the upsell, but like for example, if they're out on the site and they sell somebody into a drone, they're going to get an extra $50. If they sell somebody into a Twilight, they're going to get an extra $100. If they sell somebody into a premium floor plan, shout out QB Casa, then they're going to get a percentage of that. If they raise the package because we do a la carte options, like you choose the number of photos that you want. We don't do it based off of square footage.
Oh, okay.
So if they take someone from 20 to 30 photos, then they get a cut of that upsell.
Right. Well, that's a little, I could see that happening because that's why I don't, we go by square footage and don't charge, per photo, because I always just found that, it would be the 5,000 square foot house and the agent would be like, yeah, I'll get the 15 photo package. And, you're just like, oh my God, and then it's just such a pain in your ass to have to go and try to choose 15 photos to take this massive house.
We've never really had an issue with that. as when we just educate the realtor on what's going to be best for the house and what's going to be best for the MLS. And I would say 98 times out of 100, they're with our recommendation.
Well, and so do you, as you price it, when you present the prices on your website and everything else, do you say, oh, our 20 photo package ideal for a home of under 2,000 square feet or something? Yeah. So you kind of you kind of guide them. So in a sense, you are doing kind of square footage tiers, but you're just prompting the agent to do that, and then they have the option to go cheap if they want, or more expensive if they want.
And right.
Exactly.
When they're talking to me, they're often cheap. Like, oh, I don't think you can get 15 photos out of this 2,500 square foot house. And so I put that in the notes for the photographer. And then oftentimes what we have found, they get on site and they're like, I want a picture of this and this and this and this. And the photographer's like, okay, well, that's going to be 25 photos and here's the price. And then they're like, okay, no problem. So we've kind of found this interesting dynamic. They're cheap with me, but then on site, they want everything.
Right.
So
Realtors
there's some flexibility there.
Realtors don't know what they need or what they want.
That too.
Yeah, they don't know a lot of things. Okay, well, that is interesting. But have you had issues with your photographers not knowing which photos to take? I mean, is that, as part of that kind of training process as they come in, is when you do have to make those decisions of like, okay, I'm only taking 20 photos of this 3,000 square foot house. Are they pretty primed to know what those photos need to be?
Yeah, and oftentimes we'll over deliver a couple. Like if it's a 20 photo package, we'll 22, 23. It is what it is, because we want to put the realtor in the best chance for success.
Right.
But no, most of the time they know, and it's a training process. I review all the photos, I go through them and say, hey, love this. This is great. Here's all the things that are amazing about this. Or if they take too many photos of a room, like, hey, let's focus on the hero shots and what's most important. This angle is probably not the best and something I don't want to see moving forward. And they've been really receptive to that kind of feedback.
Okay. And then I did want to ask a little bit, you mentioned earlier about, you're trying to have less shoots and more revenue, and that you're now like kind of, you also were talking about, I've changed the style and I'm shooting the photos I want to take and, all this stuff. And to not be so volume heavy, can you talk a little bit more about that and kind of what you're aiming for? And are you trying to kind of position yourself as more of a luxury outfit rather than just kind of the regular real estate?
Exactly. So we want to go after more luxury listings. I want to start working with some more designers and architects. And actually, right after PMRE, I was able to close on our first architecture gig, and he's got several projects coming up with us. And so those are going to be much larger packages. When you're talking a cost sharing program, you get the builder involved, the designer, cabinet maker, all those things. So they can really drive up those packages where like a luxury listing might be $2,000 to $3,000. An architectural project can be upwards of $10,000.
Right.
So we've booked a couple of those businesses booked a couple of those jobs, and then really started to focus on more of our luxury offering and coming up with a look that is specific to us in town and how we can stand out against our competition, and just shoot more the way that I had envisioned and what makes me happy as an artist rather than just completely focusing on run and gun.
But do you think you can straddle both worlds where you all of a sudden you kind of transition into doing more the luxury stuff, and then you still, because I guess I would be, when I look at it from my perspective, I would be hesitant to really dismiss out of hand the run and gun stuff, because that's stuff that you can just hire another employee and have them go do, right? And then it keeps them busy and it still drives revenue for you. And then I think you can, I would think that some of those agents that are going to be your bigger clients down the road, they're starting with, low, and then you can kind of bring them along. And as their business grows, they can, utilize more of your luxury stuff.
Absolutely. And it's not something that we've completely shut the door on. Right now, I just feel like our market needs a little bit of a pricing shift. So that's what we're kind of trying to encourage. We're not going to say no to lower end jobs. But right now, I'm really focused on creating a product that we can start to scale that has the look that we want.
Right.
And once we do that, then start to grow the business a little bit more. Because I think one of one of my downfalls as a business owner was right away is like grow. And I didn't necessarily focus on the product as much. And I feel like competition kind of caught up in town and everybody was starting to look the same. And so I really wanted to focus on differentiating ourselves, creating a new brand, and then focus on how we can roll that out in a larger operation.
Right. Well, and I think as so many people are going on the scaling journey with their businesses, and we all kind of have the same model, right? It's outsource editing. Let's do this, let's do that. It kind of ends up that we all kind of look alike, and for better or for worse. But just because that it's kind of the path of least resistance, because it's like you really have to work with your editors if you want to achieve a different style than the one that they are just accustomed to doing day in and day out. So it's have you found it's just a lot of work to make that change?
Not really. It's been trial and error. But I found that once we've made the key change that we wanted to in our market, it's made the photos look better. I feel like they're getting edited better.
What's the key change?
And that's a proprietary secret.
Jesus Christ.
You're gonna out me right here.
Yeah, well, if you want to talk about those kind of secrets, this is we can have whatever, Andrew, whatever you want to say. This is a safe space for you.
No, we're shooting for more of a natural light look, and honestly,
shocking.
The photos have come back so much better.
Right, so you're just doing lights off.
Not necessarily completely lights off. It's kind of a combination, but really focusing on trying to hit that natural light
look. Yeah. Okay. Oh, wow, so cagey about his natural light.
It's not really proprietary.
Yeah, okay, I don't think so. But you're being cagey enough.
We have some competition that listens to this podcast.
Yeah, of course,
so,
of course. I know a few people in Reno who aren't you. So there's a lot of good. And look, and it's okay. I mean, and it's Reno's a big enough market. All these, so many of these markets are big enough that they can. You need some good competition, and that keeps you guys fresh and I think there's room for everybody. So,
and we're friendly with our competition. Like I'll refer some business to our competition if we're busy, because I want our clients to be in the right hands.
Right.
And so we have some referral partners in town that I know will take care of my clients if I need to.
Right. Oh, that's great. I mean, that's good. I mean, I think as we go on about all the time, as the more you can kind of be friends with other people in this industry, even if they're in your same town, I think it behooves you to do it, because it's just they're mutually beneficial relationships.
Yeah.
So are you, so are you rebranded? So you rebranded the photos. Are you rebranding your company too? Because you have the legacy name.
We want to.
Yeah, you have the legacy name of In1View Media.
I know how much you love our name. That's why I wanted to take this opportunity to announce on air that we've decided to become Upmarket North.
Oh, wow. That's great. Well, let's go ahead and negotiate the price for that right here on air.
I would love to.
$1 million.
No, a name change is something that we've been thinking about for a while. We took the name over from the previous owners. We want something that is more relevant, a little bit more catchy, something that stands out a little bit more. And it's just been a long process trying to come up with that.
Yeah. Sure.
Katie's completely over it. She's like, just pick a name and let's be done.
It's been over a year.
Yeah, of course.
And it's
yeah.
Because it's not just the name, it's then everything else that comes with it, both legally and procedurally, but then also the marketing and branding. So I'm like, this is just the first step. It's not the last step. It's the first one. So if we're going to do it, let's do it.
No, it is because it's a pain in the ass, because, that's when we scaled our business, then, brought Mark into the fold and we combined companies. We kept our old S Corp. And, but we legally changed the name. My God, what a pain in the ass. I mean, because you got to change it with the bank, you got to change it with the SBA, you got to change it. I mean, with with insurance, with every possible thing, it has to be changed. And with the IRS, you think you've done it all, and then you get something, and you're, oh God, I got to change it here too. And it was like, honestly, it was so difficult that you only want to do it once, And I think looking back, I would probably have just started a new S corp instead of bringing Mark into our existing one, because we were like, well, we have one. Why don't you just come on in, and that should be easy. You just buy into it, great, and then we don't have to go through all the setup fees and everything else. We have the bank accounts, we have everything. It's just, oh man, just a pain in the ass. So anyway, all right, well,
that's good to know.
Yeah, exactly. So be sure when you change it. And because definitely, without a doubt, changing the name means you have to take action. And that means it's time for our action items, because I did a segue. So that means it's time. And this week, our action items are sponsored by Pixel CRM. That's PIXLCRM.com. The only, as far as I know, CRM that is exclusively devoted to real estate media company owners. We've been at Upmarket. We've been using it for a little while now, seeing some results already. So give it a look. It's pixelcrm.com, and I think /Upmarket, and then you can get $200 off your monthly fee on that if you use our code, or maybe it's pixelcrm.com. I don't have it in front of me, and you can use the code. Anyway, you'll figure it out. Just tell them that Upmarket sent you, and you're going to be good to go. So I'm going to go first, since I feel like, as the owner of Upmarket South, I'm going to go first. I have a very easy one, and it just kind of comes out of what we've just been talking about, is just do a price check. We're still in slow season a little bit. So as we move into spring, check your prices a little bit. See if there's anything, you don't necessarily even have to do a wholesale price increase, although those are wonderful. I encourage everyone to do those once a year. But, maybe it's your aerials you could juice it by $10 or $15, or your Twilights, or, all the stuff we've been talking about. So just look at your prices, put that against, what your expenses, have your expenses gone up, what's going on in the business, and just make sure your prices are where you want them before things get super busy. So
that's a good one.
Yeah.
I'll go.
All right, Katie.
So in kind of this vein of like reflecting back on our journey, I think it's important to do that and reflect back and see the success that you have had. Because for me personally, it's always like, we're not doing enough. This isn't where I want to be. And that kind of negative mindset. But when you stop and think of all the work that you've put in and the journey that you've gone through and what you've conquered, had to fight for, or just easily come, whatever the case is, it's important to think back and then reflect and then kind of make plans moving forward, but honor yourself and celebrate yourself for your successes, because it's not always easy when you're building a business, and it's important to give yourself that kind of celebration. That's
great, because it always feels like you're never doing enough. Yeah, no, yeah. That's a great one. Andrew, it's gonna be you can't follow. How are you gonna follow that? I don't know.
I got two. I'm going to piggyback yours. Raise your prices. Everybody raise your prices. And then my big one is, kind of goes off what we were talking about earlier. Diversify your offerings. It kind of goes back to what Cheyenne Crawford was talking about at PMRE as far as like creating content for realtors. We are real estate photographers, but I take this from you, Reed. What we are more is, we're in the business of marketing realtors.
Yeah.
So if we have all the tools to help them market themselves by creating videos for them, and all those extra marketing pieces that we're clearly capable of, it'd be dumb not to do it. Like I said, we did an extra $100,000 last year just off of these video offerings to agents in our area. So if you have the equipment and you're capable of doing the work, I would highly suggest offering that to your agents.
All right. And I thought you were going to say buy a photography business, but I guess not. Okay, good. All right. Well,
if anyone's interested in one, I might be looking to sell. So hit me up.
Oh, that's good. Okay. All right. I'm all ears. All right. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. Finally, we did it. Thank you. Great episode. And I look forward to you guys becoming listeners again and not just guests. So we've got to boost those numbers for us. All right. Thanks, guys. Upmarket is a production of Upmarket Studios. This episode was produced by Chelsea Froelich and edited by Bethany Diedrich. Thank you so much for listening, and we really hope you listen to the next one too. In the meantime, our wish for you is to not have to shoot any Friday night Twilight shoots. Thank you for everything.